Yeah, so maybe we can start now. Like, been waiting for 5 minutes. Maybe people will join during the call. That's fine with that. Yeah, thanks, thanks, Rich, for coming here and give us a talk. Um, so I will pass you the word, and yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I put on the talk that I was going to talk about um, gamer collaboration. Um, but I also thought it was going to be like an active hackathon since I come from a software engineer background. Um, but I'll stick to that topic. Probably just deviate a little bit. Um, but I have an old presentation that I used before that I will share as some talking points that's on the topic. So let me just share that. And it's basically just talking about guilds and DAOs in Web3 and in Web3 gaming. Since I'm from ReadyPlayerDAO, and that's what we are, right? We're a DAO, a Web3 gaming DAO, but also have a guild um, and run in a decentralized manner. Um, but essentially, it's a way for gamers to collaborate um, and achieve a certain goal. Like that's the same thesis behind a DAO as well, right? It's a group of people looking to work together in a cooperative manner, whether it's financial or otherwise, to achieve a certain goal. Um, and that's kind of the thesis behind um, traditional guilds as well. So like when we think about guilds from um, World of Warcraft or RuneScape, etc., you guys are generally working together to raid dungeons and get the higher loot, or um, make use of other classes to help benefit your experience in the game and help you further your position in the game. You can take that same logic to DAOs, right? There's things that skills that I have that will benefit other people by working together with me. But the other large benefit is DAOs are flat organizations. So while some guilds could be centralized by having a guild leader that pushes the direction of those guilds in those games traditionally, the DAO actually is more flat, meritocracy based, and sets everyone on relatively equal footing. Of course, this can deviate a little bit as well if it's like an investment DAO where people have votes that are weighted by their investment into the DAO, but that can be discussed on when like how the DAO is set up and what everybody agrees upon working that way. Because there's other areas where there's also one vote, one member, one vote, right? So it just depends on how the DAO is set up. But the base idea is that people can get together and each vote on the direction and strategy of the DAO, as well as some of the actions that it takes, whether it's investments, whether it's partnerships um, with games, or even what they're developing, what they're building. So we have a lot of different avenues that we're going towards in Ready Player DAO as well. And that includes a lot of directional um, effort that needs to be put forward, which will end up being led by pods or subgroups within the DAO, right? But that strategy and the direction and how we want to achieve those goals is voted upon by the entire DAO and then put in the hands of the people that have the skills to push those forward. So it's kind of what I call out a bit here, um, where it's a meritocracy. There is more inclusion in this open source version of guilds, since there's no one in charge, but everybody can contribute. But contributions need to be approved by the broader DAO, which is essentially, from a very high level, also how open source world works. Um, and then beyond that, um, we can talk about also what what's difficult, and how some of what's difficult can be made easier with the improvement of technology. So um, when we talk about hackathons, we talk about trying to um, quickly think through ideas of like how to solve some of these issues. Um, but I'll just go through some of just what I've seen from working within a DAO, and being behind the scenes and talking to other people who run DAOs and are in DAOs, etc. And some of the stuff is mostly just between about transparency and trust, right? So if we can develop tools that are trustless, and that provide great transparency, but also the other issue is being cross-chain. So depending on what the DAO's thesis is, you might not have to deal with uh, cross-chain or multi-wallet issues. But it definitely boils down to having trustless infrastructure and for the wallets that are handling DAO assets, um, and then also transparency on the movement of funds and the purchase of assets and investments once they are voted on, because the notice safe is a great way to hold liquid assets, but sometimes if those NFTs that you're purchasing or other activity that's being done on behalf of the DAO doesn't fall into the um, the borders of what you can do with a notice safe, right? Because sometimes they need to be actively managed or played with, etc. Especially when it comes to gaming, which is our focus, right? So a lot of these NFTs need to be put to use, right? They don't have any benefit by sitting in a notice safe. So being able to send those NFTs around in a trustless manner, where people can use them and put them to use, and there isn't any risk or concern about uh, what's being done with those assets, and where they are and how they're being used, and making sure that they aren't being sold, etc. Is one of the problems that I've seen with being in a gaming DAO. Um, and that added transparency and that trustlessness. I know have been in some advancements that I know some people have developed locking contracts to help alleviate that, and then a lot of games are working with um, creating smart contracts that allow the lending of assets. Um, and essentially, what happens is they sit within that smart contract, and can be recalled by the lending wallet. Um, the other thing is decision making, but this is more of just how the DAOs are setting up their governance. So when you talk about collaboration, right, everybody needs to agree upon the rule set of that collaboration. So the best thing is to set this up when it starts, when the DAO is created, but it's never going to be perfect, right? You're going to have amendments and changes to the initial structure, and figuring that out in a way that makes everybody happy and isn't weighted towards the whales is tough to do, but definitely something possible and less reliant on the technology, right? And the hard one's rewarding participation without disincentivizing um, unrewarded participation, right? So some of the things that we've looked through is like bounties, um, and the issue, and also payment, right? So bounties can be paid with a native DAO token, or it can just be paid with, say, USDC. And you can also agree on if it's an active position that's not a single time redemption. You can do things like limited time contracts. The issue that can come from this is members who aren't getting rewarded for the work that they do might be disincentivized to continue doing that work, thinking that if it needs to be done, then they need to get paid for it. And I think there's like a fine line to ride between um, rewarding people for heavy tasks versus uh, doing lighter tasks just because you're a DAO member and are working towards the success of that DAO. So that's a very tricky issue as well. I know we've also seen DAOs kind of become VCs, um, but the way gaming DAOs that have guilds work are a little bit different, because it's actually a large community of players, that are contributors that not only will invest in some of these games but also take part in them and play them, um, and provide feedback, do beta testing, um, and provide word of mouth marketing on top of actual content creation marketing. So those are a few things from this is just from a different talk that I gave, but I think it's good to point out the difference between, DAOs and VCs, and how things work on that side, and how we've seen that shape out how, a lot of different games have been looking to do their raises over the past year. Um, so I'm not sure if any of you guys have any thoughts around that stuff, um, or any questions about that. If not, we can also talk about what we see with tokenomics and the whole earning model there as well.
Yeah, I'm quite interesting like on how they will evolve. Like, I'm not sure about the okay, just sending out a token and having like a governance like we have, because there is quite some limitation with there, as we saw like with Solend on Solana, for example. And yeah, but I'm quite convinced that with meritocracy as well, like how should we give access to the vote? Should we get like just permissionless, or should we also base like a vote on the meritocracy? So like, how did you have to be contributors to have a vote in the DAO, and not just arrive, buy a token, and have some vote there. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe you have also a point in that, and also thought about it on how to build a DAO as well.
yeah, so governance is very tricky, and I think a lot of people are still working through it. And it's a conversation that I've had, a few times over with people and with different, I guess, experiences with DAOs. So you mentioned the Solon thing, and I guess for people who don't know, essentially, they were concerned about, liquidity in that protocol, and the vote essentially had one entity that took like 90 something percent of the vote. Essentially, whichever way they voted was going to be the deciding factor, which pretty much is, centralized with the illusion of decentralization, right? Um, so, like, one of the things that I talked to people about after that was, um, of ways to prevent that, was the potential of having a cap on the percentage vote someone can have. So if the guy really did own 90%, which I don't think he actually owned 90%, it's just of the people who actually went to vote, um, he was significantly larger than everybody else. But if that ends up happening, I think one of the ways that we can address that and resolve it is by limiting the percentage of a vote that a single entity can take. So, like in Ready Player DAO, no one can have more than 9% of the DAO. So no one can, uh, theoretically ever have more than 9% of the vote, which is a way to mediate some of that. Um, Another thing, like you said, was to reward participation with additional voting powers. So a few ways that I've seen that done is through bounties. So people who are actually completing the bounties are rewarded more token or more equity, on or weight on that vote. Another way is to create, um, a platform that tracks activity in the DAO, depending on where that DAO is set up. So, like Discord, you could create a Discord integration that tracks the activity, in the DAO, and add a weight to that vote when it goes to the on-chain vote. Um, and I think these things working in conjunction with each other obviously would be beneficial. But the other thing that I think would be extremely important to set up for it beyond those things would be limitations to governance. Um, and this should be decided on by the entire DAO, not by a centralized entity or force, right? But essentially, like you wouldn't want the DAO to have access, so they have the ability to seize a user's funds like that. Um, that should probably just be something that's off limits. Um, anything that is borderline illegal or contractually obligated, so we can mention Merit Circle DAO trying to kick a uh, trying to renege on a contract and kick YGG out of uh, their seed investment that they had an agreement on like 7 months prior to that happening. That probably should never have been allowed to go through as a proposal, but that's obviously something that the DAO needs to discuss, right? I don't think just being a DAO should give the community the ability to renege on contractual obligations. I think there's some things to learn from those things, um, and obviously, we still live in the confines of the offline world as well. So, um, other things I've talked to the Axie guys on, why they haven't set up their governance system yet, and why haven't some of the stuff gone to vote, and you know, those are the issues that I was raising are similar to the issues they were concerned with. But I don't think there needs to be a wide spectrum of either no governance or everybody's able to put on proposal no matter what. I think we can meet somewhere in the middle where we have those kind of limitations. And also, for a proposal to actually go up to an on-chain vote, it might need to be backed by a certain amount of community members, right? So depending on how large your DAO is, that might be something that's necessary. You might say 5% of the community needs to push this vote up for, or push this proposal up for vote, rather than just allowing anybody to put anything up there, which we've seen as well in like the Bored Ape community. People were saying that they should drain the wallet and buy sappy seals, right? It's just ridiculous and wastes the time of the DAO. And then people stop voting because it turns into a joke like that. Um, so those are the kind of limitations that I would like to see as the governance model, and we improve in how collaboration works in the space as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think like one point as well is like you raised at the end is the like validity of a proposal, and like if we have like so much proposal, people get just bored to vote at the end. So that's also super hard as well to mitigate like which proposal has to be like a real proposal, and what other stuff can be done by the core team, because there will always be a core team that will at some point manage the daily stuff. You can't really rely on committee on all point. So yeah, it's super interesting. I think as well that will kind of, because like we kind of see now DAO at one kind of DAO, but I think it will like erase like lots of different types of governance, and yeah, based on the different type of okay, if it's investment DAO or community DAO, or for example like curve, because like if you give like one vote per account for curve, for example, you cannot really have like a curve war we had, which is like really kind of, I think, uh, positive for the protocol. So yeah, but yeah, it's quite interesting to see how it will evolve as well. And yeah, and so I have one question maybe about the 9% unready player DAO. How do you avoid the fact that, for example, I can be on multiple wallet?
So yeah, it's essentially the tokens that are used for voting are non-transferable, and the wallets are whitelisted.
Okay.
Right. So it's tougher to do at scale, but Ready Player DAO, I guess the core um, members of Ready Player DAO, there's only 58. So wallets are whitelisted and the tokens are non-transferable. Um, so that's how we mediate that. But it's also we had, um, to join Ready Player DAO, the core team, you had to make an investment. So we had maximums and minimums to prevent, a power swing in that sense as well. Um, to do it at scale, I think, um, you know, that's also very tough. And it's obviously one of the rebuttals to what I mentioned as well, right? So if everybody just tops up their wallets with 9% on each one, how do you prevent that? And some of what people have said is to do some sort of KYC, but then a lot of people like being a non, right? So it's a bit difficult. Um, but I think there's also other intuitive ways that can be used to get around it. So like tying it back to an active uh, username in the Discord per wallet that's being used as a form of like halfway of KYC to prevent people from creating several wallets. Um, I think the non-transferable token is a little bit too difficult for a large DAO, but I think there are ways that you can approach it that aren't strict, like license based or like social security number based KYC, right?
Yeah.
Or government ID based KYC. There's other forms of KYC that can be done potentially, like ENS names, etc.
Yeah, so it will like kind of like the DAO governance will kind of improve as well with the on-chain identity improvement as well. Yeah,
Yep,
kind of
exactly.
agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe other people on the call have a point of on DAO.
I do have a quick question
Yeah.
for you, Rich. Do you have any opinion on the system of delegates that we see, like for ENS and Optimism, for example, where rather than having people vote straight for governance, they just attribute tokens to someone who can propose stuff and vote for them? Do you think that's a better system than other systems?
Yeah, it's like the elected official model, right? And I think it's like I think it can be good or bad because it can be good because those people are gonna vote, right? You're delegating your votes to them because you think they're more knowledgeable on the topic and they're gonna be there to vote when a vote comes up. But the bad is on some of these platforms, so like ENS and there was another one recently. I think it was Optimism. I think Optimism forced you to delegate or choose a delegate in case you weren't able to vote. The problem is um, they they have ordered lists, right? So if you're not sure who to delegate to, everyone's just going to delegate to the people at the top. And I think it's more of like a UX UI issue than it is an actual issue. But it like that was my first concern from seeing that, because you want people to delegate their vote to people who have a reputation to think and vote in a manner that you would also do that. So I think the improvement there would be um, creating reputation, uh, non-transferable social tokens that are like reputation based, depending on your activity in the Web3 space, which I know a lot of people are working on that, especially for gaming. And having the recommendations at the top of the list being people that are similar to you, right? And that way you can see that first people at the top as people who think similarly and would vote similarly with your interest in mind, instead of just popularity ranking. So I think that's an improvement that I would like to see on those. Um, then also in that regard, maybe once someone hits that 9% threshold, remove them from the ability to be delegated to.
What I actually liked about the Optimism delegation was that like they were separating delegates into like topics.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was like quite nice. So if you like really cared about education, for example, you could just click on the education category and see like there was maybe like 6-7 people in there, so that was quite nice as well, I thought.
Yeah, so that's like the first step to creating that wallet reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no, I think that's the step in the right direction.
Yep, thanks, Rich. If anybody has other question, yeah, first thank you for this call. Quite interesting on DAO and how your thoughts are. Otherwise, I think we can wrap up the call if anyone else has to say something.
Just a quick information. It's gonna be it's all recorded, so it's gonna go on YouTube, and most of the people like to watch the replay because of, for many reasons, can be time zone differences, or it can be just because they prefer.
Yep.
Awesome. So it's gonna be recorded. So
yep. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe Rich, like if some of the hackathon participant has some questions to for you, is there a way to contact you on Discord or via email or via Twitter maybe?
Yeah. I'm at ReadyPlayerRich on Twitter.
Okay, yeah.
So I can drop it in the chat. And they can reach out to me and if they wanna. So gamer collaboration was kind of my idea for the hackathon of building a dashboard to allow a guild to collaborate across games or within the games that they're favorite. So I would love to chat about that if anyone's building anything like that or thinking about that in the hackathon.
Yeah, I think I saw a team building like a DAO tools for gaming, so I'll reach out to them and invite them to discuss that with you if they want.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone to listen.
Thanks, guys.
And see you. Bye.